Hello.
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 Good morning. This is a podcast that we just do anyway. But if you want to get involved in the conversation, perhaps shape the direction that we take, you can join our Slack. All you got to do is support us on Patreon, which you can do via patreon.com/grandpodcast. Have you got a promo?
This week, I'm going to remind people that brightonnaturalhealthcentre.org.uk has a variety of lovely classes that you can do online to look after yourself.
What, like yoga and shit?
Like yoga, meditation, Pilates, stuff like ballet for grown-ups, all those kinds of things.
How are they doing it on Zoom?
Zoom
sessions.
These sessions would normally only be available in Brighton and have been available in Brighton for the last 40 years. Oof. 40. There's a yoga class at the centre that has been going for 40 years. Nearly.
I didn't think yoga existed 40 years ago.
It didn't. It was called Joga. No, I don't know. But anyway, yes. So that's what I'd like you all to investigate this week. brightonnaturalhealthcentre.org.uk. Thank you.
And if you want to support my enterprises and stop me having to go back to contracting, come sign up. Get a free book called Tracking Happiness, goodtohear.co.uk/free. And I'm releasing some more stuff soon as well. I've got a task tool, an admin tool that lets you do one thing at a time. Just get your focus one thing at a time, and I'll start talking about that on the list as well. But also Tracking Happiness. But that's goodtohear.co.uk/free. Hello and welcome to Michael and Ivanka's Grand Podcast. It's two people just saying stuff out of our brains and trying to sometimes read a blog post or two, but mostly, you know, just skirting by on our own life experiences, being elderly as we are. My name's Michael Forrest.
And I'm Ivanka Magic.
And what you and Ivanka suggested a subject of Croatian origin today, which I will let her explain to you.
Today we are going to be talking about Fjaka.
Fjaka?
Fjaka. Which is a Croatian, the definition, it is a phenomenon popular in the Dalmatian coast. Some might say unique to the coast of Dalmatia, but it is a psychophysical state of not needing anything. Not in a state of no need, just being, just there.
Okay.
Just there.
And this is seen
we
as
will
a
discuss it.
positive thing or a negative thing?
Well, so recently I helped some friends harvest some herbs that they're growing in a big field, and they had this guy come along who'd got this cutting machine, and he was like, we should have started this much earlier today, because about 11:30 the Fjaka gets me, and I don't like working past 11:30. And in that context I'd understood it to be quite a negative thing. But then we went to a barbecue on someone's boat on Sunday, and there were all these Dalmatians sitting around, and they were talking about Fjaka, and I was like, so people, Fjaka, positive or negative? And they all went, positive? It is a state of nirvana. If you achieve Fjaka, you have achieved what everybody is working towards in their life. So this has led me to think about Fjaka.
So nothing being the goal. All right, so that sounds good. You sent me a blog post. I'll put that in the notes. It does describe it as a sublime state. So let's... are you ready? Do you want to hear about this? Let's find out if we could talk about it for 45 minutes. How's it going, Ivanka? You went on a boat? Barbecue on a boat?
On a boat.
What sort of boat?
I went on a barbecue. A big boat, like a wooden pirate shippy boat that the person who owns it normally rents it out to groups of people for their holidays, but obviously he's got no people. So we had a barbecue on it and went swimming, and it was nice.
To live in the flipping dream.
don't like to boast about these things too much, but it was pretty lovely, I have to say. We didn't go anywhere. It was all, moored and everything, but we had some food and some wine and some talks and some singing. Not that I did much singing. It's not my forte.
Crazy.
There was even a guitar, no kumbaya, all Dalmatian songs. But yeah, it's like that. That's what I did. What else have I done? Worked. Work is good. Feeling a bit more in control of the work situation, which is another thing that made me think about self-care and Fjaka and boundaries and stuff. And also, I have this morning got out of the house at 6:30 and went for a paddleboard with the dog. Me and Floyd. We had a little think about the life and the state of the universe, and we went for a little swim. Came home, so I'm feeling kind of like I've had a good week.
Good.
That I'm well. Good. That I am, you have to, I think when you for me, when I have those days where I feel like I've not let everything get on top of me, I have to recognise those days and go, well done for not working yourself into the ground and for whatever.
Excellent.
So there you go. What about you, Michael? How has your week been? How are you?
Well, I've got some stats up. I just thought, why don't I get my stats up? I worked 40. I had a 43-hour work week so far, so that's I'm back on it, having had it, and I'm sort of feeling productive again. Although, like, pushing for long days doesn't seem to be working. But yeah, like my little break time seems to have got me back into the swing of things, and I'm getting closer to an Android release of a new app, and to a web app that I've been working on for ages is starting to nearly seem like it's come together. So work-wise, things going well. Home-wise, we've been playing a lot of... I've got Sharon into Zelda Breath of the Wild. She's been playing it a lot. I keep seeing her sneaking down, and we've just been sitting and FaceTiming all day. So I'll come into the studio and she'll be at home working, and we'll just have the FaceTime going. And so often I'll kind of look over lunchtime or in the early, like late afternoon, and be like, she's fired up Zelda Breath of the Wild, running around the empty open countrysides and fighting monsters. She was like, I'm just going to pick up everything and not going to fight anything. And now she's fighting everything and killing things. I'm like, okay, this is good. So we're both, but it's a little bit like, I think there's a bit of lockdown madness, and I've been fantasizing about going out and hanging out on the boat, which is just a very distant impossibility from where we are right now. So yeah, fine work-wise, home-wise, all right. We're making the best of it, and app sales slowing down a lot, and I need to probably, it's I did the SEO, and the next, like, so many people have just copied my app now that I can't really. I don't know whether to reduce the price, but it's like, I don't really want to either. So I just need to, there's probably reviews out there of it that are positive, so I should probably just go and do a bit of research and find what people have said and just paste in a load of reviews and go, no, pay for this one, it's better. Yeah. But anyway, so yeah.
Have the words like original in the name, in the description.
Yeah.
The original bloody blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. So there we go. It's fine, but I kind of would like some adventures, or I would, I want to hang out on a boat in the sunshine. That sounds really good. Jumping into the sea and shit. So I'll just do it vicariously through you. Where do we start on?
Where do we start with Fjaka?
Where the fyak do we start on Fjaka?
We've been anglicising it this week in our house.
Fjaka.
Because my husband's not very good at fyaking. He either does things, fixes things, makes things, does things, or he's in a constant state of movement, or he's asleep. So it's like in fact, sometimes I relish the days when he's slightly hungover, because then he's better at sitting still. Right. So I was like, which aren't very often. But anyway, so
would you say that you're better at it then?
Am I better at it? I think I am better at going, let's just sit here and not do anything.
Okay.
Like in the garden, watching I am. I like it.
And you genuinely want for nothing in those moments.
In those moments, you're just sitting there looking at the birds in the garden, or we did listen to me. Fjaka is generally considered to be induced by heat.
Yeah.
So therefore, in the summer, it gets to 40 degrees. You can't do anything. You just have to sit still and wait for it to be cool enough to do things again. But in that sense, I think it's sort of an enforced Fjaka. It's enjoyable. We had friends come and visit us last summer, and she's Croatian, and we find wild beaches is our thing. And we all sat on this beach, there's no shops, there's no cafe, there's no nothing. And we're just sitting on this beach, and she goes, oh, this is some good Fjaka right here. Because, like the activities are gentle. Some people would argue that perfect Fjaka is, lying in a hammock, bottle of wine within reach, that sort of element. But that would still sort of has this, I don't know, probably substance induced.
Right.
But pure Fjaka is just a state of doing nothing and wanting for nothing. So I think my best example of practicing Fjaka was when we were on our motorcycle trip, though we didn't call it that then. So I remember we spent one whole day sitting on a bench looking out to sea on the off chance that we might see a killer whale go by.
Right.
That's Fjaka.
Did you?
Just sitting. No.
And that wasn't.
But we had a
point,
lovely
though.
day.
That's good.
That wasn't the point. The point was to just be sitting there. And I think what's made me think about it a little bit more this week is things like the fact that I have been in my, I don't know, is it fear? Is it anxiety? Is it just need? It's like, oh, what if all this work dries up, but I must say yes to everything people are asking me to do? And I was literally doing 8 till 6 every day with 20 minutes for lunch, not exercising, not doing any self-care. And for the last couple of weeks, I've been reintroducing my boundaries and the sort of the self-care elements of things. And so there's like, what drives you to just kind of keep working when I don't know. I mean, I'm lucky. I'm not going to deny my privilege in being able to earn quite a lot in not a lot of time. But so I don't need to work all those hours. But one of the drivers in that sense is the fact that work might dry up.
Yeah.
That's made me think about them watching people with the shops opening in the UK. One of the things that we know to be true is that we need to reduce consumption if our planet's to cope. So I see sort of the Fjaka kind of mindset as being the opposite of consumerism, So that made me think of it. Wanting, needing, driving, bigger house, bigger car, more things, many more versions of the same top, different colours, this season's version, more. That is not Fjaka. That is the opposite.
Let me insert some things. I'm relying on you to interject bring me into this somehow.
So Michael, what do you think?
No. No, but I was just going to say, so the only time I can think that I know maybe I had that when I went down to Morocco and it was 42 degrees or whatever, and there was no choice but to just lie in a hammock, just lie on the thing, and just there was no. I think my brain was sufficiently shut down from just. It was just let's just. Just lie here, sit here for most of the day doing nothing because your brain's completely incapacitated. And there was something that definitely felt worthwhile. And I didn't sort of, and maybe it's nice to have that kind of sort of induced state to sort of switch down all those earthly drives when you are trying to have a holiday or a break. But it's not something I've ever, I've ever really aspired to or felt comfortable doing. And I suppose, what's the difference between Fjaka, sort of chill, and just normal, let's have a beer after work kind of chill?
But I think in the normal beer out of work kind of chill, you're seeking entertainment and stimulation. stimulus of some description.
I mean, it used to just be my way of just going switch brain into a less, certainly off a work mindset.
Yeah, I think there is it's certainly on the path to Fjaka, going out for drinks after work, but there's a energy to it that I think makes it different.
Yeah, and then just thinking in terms of you mentioned your sort of not making any time for self-care, and I've got it in my diary every day, half an hour of self-care, taking a break, which, like, for example, yesterday, just sometimes I'll just go to the shops and, so get my bike, go down, pick up some stuff, come back, just force myself to get away from the screen. But yesterday was one of those, like, half an hours that's like, this is too long, this half an hour of not doing anything. And I sort of went, oh yeah, I could squeeze in a meditation, I suppose. So I sort of did that, but it was one of those just like shifting and moving, and people are always so proud of themselves when they say, "Oh, I just think so much. I can't turn my brain off." And I think maybe that's something that's not necessarily brilliant to be proud of. So I wouldn't sort of boast about not being able to relax into a meditation. But it is is there a way to induce it on demand? Or
plan in some Fjaka.
Yeah.
I mean, there is the phrase round here is the Fjaka caught me.
Yeah.
So there is a concept that it's something that gets you from the outside that you have to succumb to, which is where the sort of, probably if you wanted to brand it or turn it into some holiday experience, or, come to Dalmatia and experience Fjaka, then you'd have to you'd argue that it would come from the outside of you. But I think you've got to allow it in. You've got to allow that state to happen. And the difference, I don't know if you can have time-boxed Fjaka. It's an interesting question. I shall continue to investigate this with my Dalmatian neighbours over the summer and bring some conclusions. But yeah.
I was also going to ask, is there an socially acceptable daily Fjaka budget? How is that? Is it someone's just fjacking all day long when you're waiting for them? Is that frowned upon, or are you allowed a bit when it comes, but are you allowed to just take the piss?
This is a good question. I don't know the Fjaka etiquette entirely. I think you're not really allowed to let Fjaka get you before 11:30 in the morning.
Right.
Really.
Okay.
The sun has got to be, well up in the sky before you can convincingly use it as an excuse. But anyone
can't just
having
stay
to
in bed and say, I've got Fjaka. That's just depression.
No, but I did hear it used yesterday in that, I've just been sleeping so much, I think the Fjaka's got me. I was like, yeah, but so I'm not entirely sure. And there's definitely, if you Google a sort of Croatian Urban Dictionary type equivalent, there are certainly definitions of it that are much more in the negative. But I'm happy. In my experience, it's much more that positive state of it's too hot, sit still, do nothing. You don't have to achieve anything. I think that's the word. You don't have to. Every day is not for achievements. Some days are for just being or embracing those achievements, or I don't know. I don't know, but the daily allowance, if anyone's had to deal with customer service in Dalmatia, I think you'd be forgiven for wondering if they do anything ever sometimes. Okay.
I think differentiating it from depression is an interesting line of thinking to me, because with depression, I suppose you could say it's sort of it's almost like you're hoping for nothing now, rather than sort of it's a different. It is sort of like an induced state of inertia, and that where but it's not a positive one.
No.
And you're aware that it's not positive, but there is a catharsis to it, I always say. Like, there is, like, sort of giving up and just going, I'm just depressed and I'm just going to wallow in this. There is something weirdly addictive about depression.
No, I was thinking about this this morning, which is why I think it is a valid topic for us to discuss, because I don't know, for a variety of reasons. But I was thinking about what's the difference between that feeling of not being able to get out of bed in the morning because you're feeling so low, and sitting on a bench looking out to sea and not doing anything. Like, why is one potentially positive and one really almost always pretty negative experience, or in my experience? There's a difference between being sleepy and tired and then one where you just... I mean, I've had to call my mum in the past, go, Mother, I can't get out of bed. You've got to come round and talk to me so that I can get up and get moving, because I am, in no fit state. But so I appreciate that feeling, but there's no Mona Lisa smile behind that. There's none of that sort of like, there's no real underpinning of feeling satisfied or if you're satisfied with your depressive state, then that's, I think people can be, but it's certainly not. You're still going to feel bad, aren't you? I think there's a clear distinction. So I don't think it's it's certainly not depression, but you could watch somebody. You could be looking from the outside at somebody in a state of Fjaka, sitting on the seafront, not doing anything, going, well, why aren't they trying to build their business up more? Why aren't they trying to have... I mean, we were talking to somebody here a couple of summers ago, and he talked about one of the local restaurant owners, and he goes, well, I've tried to talk to him about expanding his season, but he's worked it out. If he's open for 40 days and gets this many covers, then he doesn't have to work for the rest of the year, and that's all he wants to do. And I remember sort of doing a bit of a and then you think, what is actually wrong with that? What is wrong with that?
Well, I think, as regards capitalism versus Fjaka, I think is probably where most of this conversation happens. And it's like I think there's a cultural bias towards looking for, wanting things that cost money, wanting things where you have to go and spend money to get them, because that's capitalism. That's the way things are. And it is like a bit of a sort of weird to people who have been trained on, just raised by television advertising, to suddenly be faced with this idea that maybe you could want not to buy stuff from Primark. You could just be and exist. And isn't that really shouldn't that be the goal here? Shouldn't that be the goal for the human condition, to just be able to be okay, I'm covered, I'm safe. Yeah. No one's going to eat me or anything either. Nothing's coming to kill me. Isn't nature beautiful? Can Fjaka be achieved outside of nature? I don't know.
I don't know. That's a very good question. I shall. That needs to be explored, I think.
For me, it's hard for me to, I could try and achieve Fjaka looking out of the first floor window of while hip hop plays down to the right, and someone has a scrab, someone's yelling at someone over there, and there's someone wheeling something up the road, and there's some people chattering, and it's all a bit grubby, and that is probably the closest I get at the moment, despite all of those sort of interruptions. Or is it better to sit in front of the TV staring at the Apple, aerial photography screensavers?
I think there's the sitting and looking out the window in an urban setting, I think, is still an acceptable form of Fjaka, because you are observing, you are watching, you're not even observing, or you're just there things are happening around you. You're not a player. You're not that Apple screensaver thing has been designed to engage you. Do you know, like?
Well, it changes too much. And then it's also quite short. After you've seen it a few times, you've kind of seen it all. And sometimes we put on these train journey ones, so it's like a 6-hour YouTube video just from the front of a train, and that was quite pleasurable because you're sort of like kind of it sort of made me not feel like I had to put anything else on or do anything else. We would just sort of sit there and just chill, and we're just on this train, which that maybe it's possible to achieve via a screen using this kind of really long form content, because I think if you're just staring at a blank thing or a repetitive thing, it's very hard to sort of like feel any sense of satisfaction, because it's not enough for your brain to. I think your brain needs some sort of richness.
I think that, I think urban and Fjaka is a thing. I think Fjaka in transit, moving Fjaka, because I would say that sitting on the back of a motorcycle, being driven, is definitely that sort of. Well, and maybe that explains why I'm so much better than Nick at not doing anything. Because I've practiced for 29,000 miles across the world. But, just sitting there and watching, it doesn't mean that you're not. And it's not like a meditation, because in a meditation, you're deliberately trying to clear your mind. Really, or whatever it is, or kind of like you might. With all the, like you said, I just can't make my mind go quiet. Blah, blah. Whereas in this state, I think thoughts are allowed and you're allowed to think, but you've not sat down in order to think. Thinking happens because you're in the right state of not actively seeking anything. You're not even seeking the absence of things, which meditation still requires, there's some sort of pressure, isn't there? Yeah. Whether you like it or not, there is. Whatever everyone says on those videos and the audios, and they go, don't feel any pressure, whatever.
And I suppose it must be distinct in the sense that you don't, as you sit there, you're not like having ideas about things you want to get started on as quick as possible. Oh, I could do this. Oh no, I'm just really itching to get back to, that's, and that can happen with me with meditation, but also just I remember it happening just from having to put my phone, after being at work, and this was the same Morocco trip, but just putting my phone into flight mode for probably the first time in 9 months, and just suddenly not having anything to do for it just was so many ideas and things that had just been held at bay by the constant just activity. So, but would you say that it is even a creative thing, that it does open up creativity, or is it just literally a different thing, a separate thing?
I don't know. I think to attribute it opening up creativity feels like you're undermining its value.
It should be an end in itself, not a means.
An end in itself, not a means to anything. However, I think inevitably, if you're sitting there doing nothing and wanting for nothing, and thoughts will come, and that's when ideas come, isn't it? Really, Then the moments that you stop.
I would like to want for nothing, but I keep trouble is, yesterday we tried to do a little check-in, and and my brain is just 24 hours work at the moment. It's just what if the sales are reduced? Oh, what am I going to get this? Oh, the mailing list sign-ups. And I wonder if I can convert them. And how long is it going to take until I can finish this? And you're sort of, all the time this last couple of months, certainly thinking like, really, like, why can't I just enjoy this time instead of obsessing over daily app sales or how many emails, like checking my phone every 5 minutes in case there's another email sign up, like, because spending, and it's like I just want to, like, I want that to be during the day, maybe, like, it's important to be doing it when I'm at work, but like it's going into the evening, and I'm just thinking, like, okay, so yeah, lockdown in whatever form is, like, it's limiting in terms of what we can do, but like, what I wish I could just want for nothing for a bit, like, on a daily basis even. And what is it that, why can't I just, or as things start to gain momentum, it just turns into wanting more and more. And it's like, oh, maybe I could get that. Maybe we like looking at, maybe we could get that flat on Shad Thames. Oh, maybe we could move to, Lake Como sooner. Like, it's all those things. Like, you can't just go, okay, I needed enough. I just needed 10 times as many sales as I had. I've got that. Why can't I just be like, cool? Why do I have to make it another 10x and another 10x? Like, how do we turn off that impulse? And is that a fundamental human impulse, or is it because I'm in a city and there's nothing else to do, or is it, I don't know.
I don't know. I will say that in this world, in this Balkan world of Fjaka, this Dalmatian world of Fjaka, I don't know if the Herzegovinians are as good at it. I'll think about that. But the Dalmatian Fjaka, most of the people here are living in a house that was owned by their parents, probably their grandparents, built, added on to. They got married, the wife came to live with them, she got married, she went to live in someone else's family house. They've turned that house that was a 4-bedroom house, they've built a bit on, and now it's got 2 flats instead of 1 dwelling. But the house is completely paid off. Yeah. Nobody can take it away from them. Yeah. It is their home. In whatever state it is a forever, it's a forever thing that is there and is undeniably theirs. Many people are in that situation. There are many that aren't, living with but them? That's,
Sorry, like
often, multi-generational households, very normal here, definitely. And I think that's one of the things, being in this village where we are on our own as a unit, without grandparents or that maiden auntie or those kind of people, like most households probably wouldn't, especially the kids, probably wouldn't have noticed lockdown particularly because they're locked in a household with their 5 cousins. That's because their brother and uncle, their uncle and them all live in the same house. So,
like, it's weird that it's such a faux pas. Like, it's such a kind of, like, it's kind of sneered at, isn't it, to live with your parents in the UK? Like, why are we so against that? And like, each generation has to go through this whole rigmarole. If someone's got to get a mortgage and you've got to pay that off for the 25 years. And like, why don't we just like live together? And I think we'd all be a lot happier if we didn't force ourselves out into, it's nice to have your own space some of the time.
But I mean, boundaries are, totally. But the, like here, for example, there are a couple of these families that we're connected into. And then when my daughter goes to play at their house, she gets, rent-a-granny as well as playing with, you know what I mean? The whole family are there. So she gets some granny time. Okay, it's a borrowed granny for a bit, but she gets that time and and it's a different dynamic and a different energy, multi-generational living for sure. You get all these different, the way granny and grandpa tell you off is not the same way as mummy and daddy tell you off, is not the same way as auntie and uncle tell you off. And you get all these different
ways of being told off.
Why? I don't know why it's being told off. It's a good question. That's what I think. That's the example of sitting in someone else's garden and watching my daughter and her little friend, the little friend's granny going, "No, stop playing in the water. I've told you to stop." That's the example that was in my head. But it could also be advices.
And do you think it is? Would you call it privilege to be able to just be taken by the Fjaka?
I think so. I think if it's not based, if it doesn't come from I was thinking about it. I was thinking about whether your definition of feeling safe enough. I don't know the answer. Is the best answer. But I think that it could be interpreted as a privilege, yes, because you have to feel safe enough and secure enough. But there are people around. In these areas, you see them who are sort of feel safe and secure enough just in their needs and wants, I think, that they go, I've done enough. Is it a privilege to have Fjaka?
I think it would be in a capitalist society, in a kind of intensely capitalist society where the only people that are feeling safe are the ones that have some sort of wealth or, living with their parents, kind of like their parents have got, there's enough wealth that they're fine.
Yeah. There's also, culturally as well here. One of the examples in that article I sent you was the woman talked about sitting outside a cafe drinking a coffee for an hour and a half. Like, nobody is going to tut at you outside of a cafe on the Dalmatian coast because you've sat over your coffee for an hour. Who wants to rush their coffee? What sort of deranged behaviour is it to rush? That's just ridiculous. Did I tell you this story of this guy Nick met? It is related. He goes, he's travelled a lot. He used to be an engineer on ships. And he said, I've been to London a few times. Everybody's always rushing about. When I was there last time, I just grabbed somebody. I said, where are you going? It's like...
you don't have to be from somewhere else to feel that either. Like, I just remember... No. Just the worst one was the one company, this marketing agency I worked at, and just seeing people working till late into the night, and every day, getting so stressed about it. And I'm like, what are you shooting for here? What do you think's going to happen if you live like this? This is just how it's going to be forever. Like, there's no prize. There's no sudden moment where suddenly you've got enough that you can take your foot off the accelerator. I was trying to think of a car metaphor. I don't drive, so that was good. Take your feet off the pedals for just a minute. Just free wheel for a bit. Go down the hill. It's just not going to happen unless you make it part of your routine. If it's just a habit that you just kill yourself for this thing that's really giving you nothing, superficial nonsense. And money that you've got no time to do anything with, or that you have to spend just to stay well. Therapist, massage, chiropractor, acupuncture, holidays, or it's expensive working like that. Yeah, I just want to embrace I've got enough. If we could just embrace having enough, and then just think about what life looks like if you don't rush to the shops at every opportunity, and so that until you haven't got enough, or you'll just go and get some house that you can't quite afford now, and then you're kind of trapped in this cycle of having to earn X amount of money. And why can't we just what is the difference between Croatians or Dalmatians and British humans that why can't I be? I tried to be, but it's pretty impossible. What's the difference between those mentalities?
We cannot remove the factor of heat. Fjaka is a summertime phenomenon, really. But I argue that you can have it all through the year. But it's the heat forces you to stop. And I think in being forced to stop, you can learn that you don't always need to move. And that's the thing. There's something that comes every summer is a heat that will, even Nick stopped doing DIY in July and August last year because you just can't. It's just too hot. And so it's I think that's what my hope maybe this, for me, why this is such a theme at the moment is that my hope coming out of lockdown and corona is that we will understand that there's a whole bunch of stuff we don't need. Mm-hmm. And if we all stopped buying shit we don't need, there'd be a bit more to go round. You know, and the earth might last a bit longer, like be able to support human life for a bit longer. And I, you know, you kind of think, well, I sort of thought in my naivety, or maybe I continue to hope that a pandemic has done that for us, and maybe we're going to have a few waves to teach more of us that actually just you don't need it.
We went for a walk around up to Primrose Hill for Sharon's birthday on Sunday.
Lovely.
Our sort of weekly long walk where we go to somewhere in London, because we can. That's good, isn't it? We went up Primrose Hill, came down to Camden. We went into that Whole Foods our Whole Foods that we used to do a bit of people watching when we lived near each other. But Sharon did spot someone in an Extinction Rebellion t-shirt walking along with like one of those plastic like milk, what those cups with the juice or whatever, and just was like, what the hell? what are you doing? Like, while you're wearing the t-shirt, perhaps don't walk around with a plastic cup. At least it's just like, you're not sending a good message there. Ivanka would not be impressed.
Ivanka would tell you off. So, but you can't be. No one's perfect.
No one's perfect.
No one's perfect.
I was just thinking,
if more of us were better, though.
I think, like, if you're wearing the Extinction Rebellion t-shirt, you make an extra effort, really. Yeah. So just putting that out there.
I think that goes to my example of that recently at work, someone behaving badly who's in a brand position, and you're like, when you're at work, you've got to be the brand if you're the brand person. You can't, it's like, so yes, I get that.
Just going back to your point, about the heat, it's like, it's, I think just the fundamental human condition is we kind of need to be forced into different behaviours. It's really hard to choose a behaviour that sort of feels like it sort of makes me think that it's going to be a tough sell without that actual sun bearing down heat problem. I think sorry, you just reminded me, because it's not just sun, it's also historically we would also have to stop work in winter because we didn't have you couldn't grow anything. There wasn't enough light was expensive. All of the nature used to just be much more like, when you said, can you have Fjaka without nature, I think yes, you can in that sort of in that scenario we described, but our living more closely with nature forces us to have these breaks and these pauses that, as humans, we need. You cannot work. Yeah. I just think back to the sort of like an older kind of like like say we're farmers, like you work for 3 months, 2 months of the year. 3, 4 maybe, and just the rest really is just hard. Like, drink beer and chill and just,
feed the animals and make sure nothing's fallen down or flooded.
It's like this idea that you got to work a 40-hour week every single week or you'll go be homeless. It's not very human, is it? Like, and the more we disconnect ourselves from natural cycles, and I sometimes I think like I keep I've been waking up at like super early, like 5 a.m. kind of thing, but like the sun's shining, so maybe it's fine to like just get up super early in the summer because the sun's out, and as long as I can in the winter be happy just staying in bed a bit longer if it's too dark and miserable. But it's just when you can just switch a light on at any time, it's hard to connect with nature. I suppose if we did let weather and temperature, just that if we did let nature rule our lives, then it's a lot harder to make plans because you don't know if you do make plans, you've got to get more comfortable with those plans going out the window because it's raining. Which I think I would find it very hard to do. I think in London and cities you sort of find that very hard to do because you want to know exactly where all your time's spent. Whereas I suppose like the heat is a bit more of a consistent cycle, so you can be sort of ready for the Fjaka to take you?
Me personally, I think it's very hard. It's harder and harder these days to make a living from the land because weather has become more unpredictable. So there is an element of that sort of that unpredictability of weather that's got worse. Like, we're getting weather that's not seasonal or peculiar for the season. So, but that aside, I think there is a difference between living with the rhythms of nature, being dictated to by nature, and trying to conquer nature. Do you know what I mean? Right. It's like people who, in its very simplest form, you've got people who walk around their British house in winter in shorts and a T-shirt, but they've got the heating on at 25 degrees. I find that odd, personally. I do. It's not even reprehensible. It's like your body, you're not prepared for going outside. Outside is going to be a rock shock. So that's one. And then there's people who live in super, super hot countries trying to do normal stroke, quote unquote things like going about their daily lives and relying on enormous amounts of air conditioning just to be. That is conquering. That's like trying to, or that, that Dubai thing that's built on sand, that palm thing. It's like,
it's just made.
Why do we need to do that? Do we really need to build on sand at sea? I don't think we do. That kind of. So I think this whole Fjaka conversation leads you to think about how do you I think it's a beautiful example of benefiting from living in harmony with nature rather than having a ruck with it every time you go out your door.
Yeah. Thanks for listening. If you like the podcast, you can go to grandpodcast.com. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. Say here next week's episode 130. We must be out of our minds. Where can people find you, Ivanka, if this podcast is not enough for them?
Well, I fear that I don't hear from people because they feel like they've spoken to me because they listen to podcasts. But anyway, you can find me at Ivanka on Twitter is the best place to find me. And I'm hanging out there often.
Find me at Michael Forrest on Twitter, one word. And let's just leave it at that. If you like the music on this, it's all by me, michaelforrestmusic.com. Thanks for listening. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.